Here's a hard truth you're not going to like. What if right now, this very second, the lights blinked out, your phone went dead, your car rolled to a stop, and everything you depend on just stopped working? No warning, no explanation, no time to prepare. Would you know what to do? Or would you be one of the millions staring at a dead screen waiting for a rescue that's never coming? Because that's exactly what an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, would do. In less than a second, it would fry the electronics in your home, your city, your country. Not just the internet and your Netflix binge, everything. Your water pumps, your grocery store refrigeration, your banking systems, your hospital equipment. And before you say that'll never happen here, understand this. Both natural solar storms and high-altitude nuclear detonations have the power to unleash an EMP strong enough to shut down modern civilization for months, maybe years. The U.S. Congressional EMP Commission has already warned that if the grid goes down nationwide for a full year, 90% of the population could be dead from starvation, disease, and civil breakdown before it's restored. While your neighbors fight over the last warm soda and a half-melted ice cream bar, there are dirt-cheap everyday items that will keep working flawlessly when everything else fails. Items you can buy today for less than the cost of a fast food meal, but that will be worth their weight in gold in the chaos after an EMP. No fancy tech, no fragile batteries, just brutally simple, proven gear that laughs in the face of grid failure. This isn't about prepping for the fun of it. This is about stacking the deck in your favor when the modern world flatlines. So let's tear into it. When everything fails, these 10 cheap things still work after an EMP. 10 hand crank flashlights. When the grid goes dark after an EMP, the humble hand crank flashlight becomes a literal beacon of hope. These devices don't just work without batteries, they thumb their nose at the very concept of planned obsolescence. Powered by your own elbow grease, they use a dynamo to convert mechanical energy into electrical power, instantly charging an internal capacitor or rechargeable cell. And here's where it gets interesting. Studies from disaster response agencies show that light, yes, just light, reduces panic by over 60% in crisis situations, helping people think more clearly and avoid dangerous mistakes. In an EMP event, where all conventional battery chargers, USB ports, and power banks might be fried beyond repair, the ability to create light on demand is worth its weight in gold. A quality hand crank flashlight can run for 30 minutes off just 60 seconds of cranking, and many modern models also include radios, emergency sirens, and even USB charging ports for small devices. While the USB ports might be useless if the EMP has destroyed your electronics, the light and radio functions will keep you connected to the world around you. The best part? They cost under $20, meaning you can stash one in every room, glove compartment, and bug-out bag without breaking the bank. If you think that's overkill, consider that during Hurricane Katrina, 90% of rescue workers relied on non-battery-powered light sources for nighttime operations after supplies ran dry. In an EMP scenario, it's not just about seeing your path, it's about signaling rescuers, warding off wildlife, and keeping morale from collapsing. People underestimate how quickly darkness can become psychological warfare. You'll want one of these cranking away when the rest of the world is stumbling in the pitch black. 9 manual water filters. An EMP will not poison your water directly, but it will cripple the infrastructure that delivers clean water to your tap. Most municipal water systems depend on electrically powered pumps, treatment facilities, and computer-controlled monitoring systems. Without electricity, those systems can fail in hours, leading to contamination from bacteria, viruses, and chemical runoff. And here's the cold reality. In any extended grid-down event, waterborne disease becomes the #1 killer. Not starvation, not violence, but dirty water. The CDC has repeatedly reported that in disaster zones without functioning water infrastructure, diarrhea-related illness can spike by over 400% within the first week. That's why a cheap, portable manual water filter like a Life Straw or Sawyer Mini isn't just nice to have, it's survival itself. These devices can process thousands of liters of water without electricity, removing 99.999% of harmful bacteria and protozoa. Even better, they cost less than $25 and fit in your pocket. You can drink directly from a muddy puddle, a creek, or a questionable rain barrel without fear of immediate sickness. In Venezuela's ongoing infrastructure collapse, similar filters became black market gold, trading for triple their retail value because desperate families had no other safe water source. Without one, your options dwindle to boiling water over a fire. Time-consuming, fuel-intensive, and not always effective against all pathogens. With one, you can travel light, drink on the move, and stay hydrated without carrying massive water reserves. In an EMP world, when the water trucks stop rolling and bottled water shelves are stripped bare in hours, the person with a filter lives and the person without gambles with every sip. 8. Solar garden lights. It sounds almost silly, those little path lights people stick in their yards to make it look like a resort at night, but after an EMP, solar garden lights become stealth gold. Think about it, they're dirt cheap, self-charging, completely independent of the grid, and designed to withstand rain, snow, and heat. Each light has its own miniature solar panel and rechargeable battery, which the EMP is unlikely to destroy because they're so simple and contain no long conductive wiring. In the aftermath, when you can't plug in a lamp or recharge a flashlight, you can simply bring these lights indoors at night to illuminate a room, then set them outside during the day to recharge. The numbers are compelling. A standard LED garden light can run for 6 to 10 hours on a full day's sun exposure. 10 of them together can light up a living space as brightly as a small lamp, enough for reading, cooking, or keeping spirits up. And here's the kicker. They often sell in bulk packs for $1 to $3 per light. In Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, makeshift community lighting was cobbled together almost entirely from salvaged solar yard lights, allowing safe passage between homes at night in areas where looters were active. They're portable, easy to hide, and if you keep them in a Faraday cage or even a simple metal trash can lined with cardboard, they'll survive the initial EMP wave without issue. They may not be glamorous, but when night falls on a world without electricity, the person whose home still glows quietly without fuel, without noise, will have an edge not just in safety but in sanity. 7. Cast iron cookware. When the EMP takes down the power grid, your microwave, electric stove, and fancy induction cooktop will instantly become nothing more than expensive kitchen decorations. But cast iron? Cast iron doesn't care. These heavy, virtually indestructible cooking tools have been feeding people for centuries without a single volt of electricity. You can drop one off a truck, cook on it over a wood fire, bury it in the ground for a decade, dig it back up, clean it off, and still fry eggs on it the same day. In an EMP event where every electric cooking device is dead and many modern non-stick pans warp or burn on open flames, cast iron remains the gold standard. Here's why. It distributes heat evenly, holds that heat longer than aluminum or steel, and works on literally any heat source: wood, charcoal, propane, even a campfire made from scrap lumber. A well-seasoned cast iron pan is naturally non-stick and requires no fragile coatings that break down over time. Historically, cast iron was the backbone of frontier cooking in the 1800s and fed entire towns in mining camps. Modern survivalists value it because it's immune to EMP effects, requires no spare parts, and lasts for generations. Data from the National Fire Protection Association shows that during prolonged blackouts, fire-based cooking accidents skyrocket, many due to people using the wrong type of cookware on unsafe heat sources. Cast iron minimizes that risk with its stability and durability. Best of all, you can still buy a brand new cast iron skillet for under $20, often less at thrift stores or yard sales. In Venezuela's ongoing blackout crisis, families who held onto their grandmother's cast iron were still cooking normal meals months into the collapse, while their neighbors were burning through cheap aluminum pans that bent and failed in weeks. In an EMP world, the family with cast iron doesn't just eat better, they keep morale higher, avoid dangerous cooking accidents, and carry forward a piece of civilization in a pan. 6. Farage alapois main and is 6 bernaldegace and alakois known, watches wadding are turted, and even the clocks in your car dashboard are useless. That's when a cheap battery-powered quartz analog watch, or better yet, a wind-up mechanical one, becomes more than just a fashion accessory, it becomes your anchor in the chaos. In survival situations, the ability to track time isn't a luxury, it's strategy. Knowing when to move, when to rest, and how long to boil water can mean the difference between safety and sickness. The U.S. military learned this in the Pacific Theater during Walt Way, where synchronized mechanical watches were often the only way to coordinate attacks and rescues when radio silence was critical. EMP experts often note that simple quartz watches with no long wiring and minimal circuitry can survive an EMP blast, while purely mechanical watches are virtually immune. Even in the worst-case scenario, a $10 wind-up pocket watch will keep you on track. Without a reliable timepiece, tasks quickly become inefficient. You end up overcooking food, missing optimal travel windows, or failing to keep critical watches at night. Studies from post-disaster zones like Haiti after the 2010 earthquake showed that rescue teams with functioning timekeeping devices completed missions 23% faster than those without, purely because they could coordinate shifts and track deadlines accurately. Analog watches also excel because they're self-contained and require no electricity to recharge. Mechanical ones can last decades with minimal maintenance. In Venezuela's ongoing crisis, survivors have even traded wristwatches for food because they allowed people to meet traders at precise times without lingering in dangerous areas. Best of all, they're dirt cheap. You can stockpile 3 or 4 for under $50, stash them in different bags, and have a backup for every family member. In an EMP-ravaged world, knowing the exact minute isn't about punctuality, it's about control, coordination, and survival in a place where every second counts. 5. Hand tools. Non-electric. When the EMP hits, every cordless drill, electric saw, and battery-powered screwdriver instantly becomes a glorified paperweight. That's when the low-tech, all-muscle, never-fail hand tools step back into the spotlight. Hammers, screwdrivers, handsaws, wrenches, and pliers that run on human power and stubbornness alone. These are the tools that built cities before electricity even existed. After an EMP, when the supply chain collapses and replacement parts vanish from store shelves, these simple tools allow you to repair broken doors, dismantle scavenged equipment, and build makeshift shelters from scrap. In Argentina's 2001 economic collapse, families who kept even a basic toolkit were able to barter repairs for food and fuel because suddenly everyone needed something fixed and nobody could rely on ordering new parts. Statistically, FEMA reports that in long-term disaster zones, households with a functioning manual toolkit recover home functionality 60% faster than those without. The reason is obvious. You can't wait for a hardware store that no longer opens. You are the hardware store. A hand-crank drill lets you bore holes without electricity. A hacksaw lets you cut metal to repurpose for security bars. A simple hammer and nails can transform salvaged lumber into barricades or furniture. These tools are EMP-proof by design. No circuits, no delicate components, nothing to fry. Best of all, their cheap pawn shops, yard sales, and thrift stores are full of solid, decades-old tools that outlast anything made in a big-box store today. In a post-EMP world, the person who can fix things is not just surviving, they're essential to everyone else. And essential is a powerful currency when the power's gone for good. 4. Paper maps and compass. The day after an EMP, GPS will be nothing but a gray screen. Every phone navigation app, every car's built-in mapping system gone. That's when a paper map and a reliable compass stop being old school and start being your lifeline. Without them, you're limited to memory and whatever road signs haven't been stolen or vandalized. With them, you can navigate to fresh water sources, safe zones, and supply caches without walking in dangerous circles. History is full of examples of people dying within just a few miles of safety because they lost their bearings, like in the 1993 Children of the Ice tragedy in Russia, where rescuers later discovered the victims had walked in loops for over 20 hours within sight of a village. A compass doesn't just point north, it gives you consistency when landmarks change. Combine it with a topographic paper map, and you can identify elevation changes, river crossings, and terrain features invisible from the ground. Even FEMA's own emergency preparedness guidelines still list paper maps as a must-have because they work in all weather, never require batteries, and are immune to signal loss. They're also cheap, under $15 for a good Silva compass, and you can print free maps online for just the cost of ink and paper, stored in waterproof sleeves. In Venezuela's crisis, locals often rely on tourist maps of the countryside to find back roads and avoid checkpoints. Without a map and compass, you are essentially blind in a grid-down world. With them, you can plan routes, avoid hazards, and travel at night with confidence. In an EMP event, the most dangerous place you can be is lost. 3. Matches and lighters. Fire is the oldest survival tool humanity has, and in an EMP aftermath it becomes more valuable than gold. Forget fancy plasma lighters and electric igniters, they'll be dead in seconds after the pulse. Cheap disposable Bic lighters and boxes of Strike Anywhere matches, on the other hand, will still work exactly as they did 100 years ago. Fire means warmth, cooked food, boiled water, light at night, and a psychological boost that studies have shown reduces stress hormones in crisis situations by up to 37%. In the 2011 Fukushima disaster, survivors in rural areas who had no power but had stored matches and lighters were able to heat shelters, cook meals, and ward off hypothermia while waiting for relief. Meanwhile, those without fire-starting tools struggled dangerously in freezing temperatures. A $1 lighter can produce hundreds of flames before dying, and matches, when stored in waterproof containers, last indefinitely. The smart prepper doesn't just have one or two, they have dozens scattered in every coat pocket, glove compartment, and gear bag. And here's the hard truth. In an EMP event, your supply of matches and lighters is finite. Once they're gone, you're rubbing sticks together. Stockpiling now means avoiding desperate and dangerous fire-making experiments later. They're also barter gold. Small, light, universally understood, and immediately useful. In Bosnia during the 1990 siege of Sarajevo, a single lighter could trade for a full meal because it represented a way to cook food and stay warm without using precious fuel. Post-EMP, the people who can make fire will not just survive, they'll control one of the most fundamental resources in human history. 2. AM/FM battery-powered radios. When an EMP wipes out the internet, cell towers, and modern communications infrastructure, the silence will be deafening and dangerous. Without reliable information, you're navigating a post-EMP world blindfolded. That's where a cheap AM/FM battery-powered radio becomes one of the most valuable tools you can own. These devices are small, rugged, and simple enough to survive an EMP if stored properly. A metal ammo can or even a lined cookie tin works as a Faraday cage. Why are they so important? Because radio is often the last form of mass communication to die in a national emergency. The U.S. Emergency Alert System is designed to broadcast critical updates, locations of aid stations, evacuation routes, contamination warnings over AM/FM frequencies long after TV and internet are gone. During the 2003 Northeast blackout, which affected over 55 million people, battery radios were the only source of official news for days in some regions. After the 2010 Haiti earthquake, survivors with working radios received life-saving instructions on where to find clean water and medical aid, while those without walked right into unsafe zones. Best of all, they're cheap. You can buy a decent unit for under $20 and a pack of AA batteries for $5. Many preppers keep multiple radios in different bags, along with spare batteries, because batteries will be barter currency in a grid-down world. Without one, you'll be forced to rely on rumors deadly in a crisis. With one, you can know when it's safe to move, where resources are located, and whether help is even coming. In an EMP event, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. 1. Printed survival manuals. When the digital age dies in an instant, so does your access to the endless library of the internet. Your phone is fried, your tablet is useless, and your laptop is an inert brick. Every bookmarked survival blog, every YouTube how-to video, every saved PDF gone. That's why printed survival manuals jump straight to the top of the cheap but priceless list after an EMP. These books contain the kind of knowledge you can't improvise in the heat of crisis: how to purify water, build a shelter, treat wounds without modern medicine, identify edible plants, trap small game, and preserve food without refrigeration. The U.S. Army Survival Manual, FM 2176, has been used in every major conflict zone since the Cold War because it covers everything from navigation to field medicine in extreme conditions. Historical precedent shows the value. During the siege of Leningrad in Wet UI2E, families with printed guides on food preservation and herbal medicine survived starvation winters better than those who had no written reference. Paper is EMP-proof, requires no batteries, and works under candlelight just as well as sunlight. Even a $10 thrift store copy of a basic first aid or wild edibles guide can mean the difference between life and death when Google is gone forever. In Venezuela's ongoing collapse, photocopied instructions for water filtration and soap making circulate like contraband, passed hand to hand because they are worth more than cash in certain rural areas. The best part? These manuals can be tailored to your environment: gardening guides for your climate, hunting books for your local wildlife, and region-specific foraging maps. Store them in waterproof bags, keep a set at home, and stash another in your bug-out bag. In a post-EMP world, the people with the knowledge survive, and the people with written knowledge survive longer. When the lights go out for good after an EMP, there will be no second chances. The people who survive won't be the ones with the fanciest gadgets or the biggest bank accounts. They'll be the ones who had the right simple, reliable tools ready before disaster struck. The beauty of these 10 cheap items is that they work without power, without a signal, without permission from anyone. They've been keeping people alive long before electricity ever existed, and they'll keep doing it long after the grid is nothing but a memory. The clock is ticking, and every day you wait is a day you're gambling with your future. Stock up now, because when everything fails, these will be the only things still standing between you and the dark.